We're recording for our YouTube viewers. What's up, YouTube? Just got to go live right now on our Facebook and wait for it to finish going live. Once it goes live, I'll do the intro. Here we go. And what's up, fight fans? Welcome to another episode of Stoner versus Stoner. By my count, it's episode 25. Not bad, chugging right along in our episode count. With me, as always, my co-host, my cohort, the professional fighter himself, Don Stoner. Go ahead and give our listeners your credentials, Don.
What's up, everybody? Glad to be here. Jiu-jitsu black belt, lifelong martial artist. I own a Brazilian jiu-jitsu school, an academy of martial arts up here in the Pacific Northwest. And I watch all combat sports, and I'm also a huge fan, a lot, as well as being a competitor. So, yeah.
And I'm Chino LaForge, stand-up comedian and big-time MMA fan. I've been training since I was a little kid, but never, of course, got to the main competitive level due to genetics and a sunny disposition. I didn't really have the dog in me, so to speak. But I am a huge MMA fan. Been watching since its creation, since UFC 1. I mean, of course, you can argue that Brazil with the Vale Tudo fights and all those started it. But we're not talking about fighting or punk rock like that right now. We're talking about what happened recently with UFC. What was it, 257 by my count? Is that correct?
Yeah.
Man, huge card. First of all, this card was stacked to begin with from top to bottom as far as talent goes for fights. The main card was amazing. The undercard fights were great. Anything stand out for you in the undercards before we start talking main cards?
I was training all day, and I rushed over to my friends for the main card. So I'm going to go back and watch those. I didn't really see too much. What about you, my brother?
There's a few good ones. Don't go too far back. The first two were 3-round fights, went to decision. The Nick Lentz fights was pretty interesting, but he actually just retired after 15 and a half years of a career, so that deserves a shout out. Of course, I'm going to suggest watching my buddy Brad Tavares, Hawaii fighter, dominate in a 3-round decision. That was great. It was a lot of decisions, but there was one submission, I believe, in the ladies' fight. But overall, it was a good way to ramp into the event that we had in front of us, because the event definitely delivered as far as the main card goes. Did you feel like it was worth your pay-per-view dollars, Don?
Oh, yeah, for sure. This is one of them that's like no regrets whatsoever on pay-per-view, dollars spent. I did catch that Brad Tavares fight because he was fighting a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu world champion, Antonio Carlos Jr. And, I always go for the Jiu-Jitsu guys, but Tavares had a perfect game plan. His takedown defense was on point. Carlos Jr. could not get the fight where he needed to get it. Great, huge win for Brad Tavares.
Yeah, it was a big one for him. He's had a great career, ups and downs, as some will have, but he's really been looking fantastic as of late. That's his second win in a streak. His last win was another grinder, so it's nice to see. I love seeing Hawaiian fighters on the upswing. There's a lot of them kind of climbing the ranks right now, so it's really exciting for us in Hawaii to watch. We don't really have much when it comes to professional sports. You don't see a lot of Hawaii athletes all over the place. You have Shane Victorino, the Flying Hawaiian. He's one of the most famous ones. You'll get some on football, where most people make fun of how they can't pronounce their last names. But in the MMA world, it seems like the Hawaiian athlete really shines. So it's really nice to see some of our Hawaiian athletes out there really putting the shine on. So keep it up, Brad Tavares. You're doing great things for us. Let's talk about this main card. Where do you want to start? You want to start at the bottom, and then we can go into the coup de grace, the big calls that you've already started 2021 with?
Yes, sir.
All right, so let's just go ahead and start by saying that This was a complete wash for all of my picks. I picked the fight wrong every single time on this card. Don, you just swept me in this one. Let's just start by saying that. Let's get that out of the way. I don't want to talk about that for too long because it hurts. But let's go ahead and give you the credit where credit's due, Don. You completely picked all the right fights in this one. How does that feel?
Feels great because this is like the card for me. This is like the biggest card for me. I mean, in a while, and depending on how the rest of the year goes, it might have been the biggest card as far as where the divisions are going to go and what's going to happen with the biggest stars. I feel like it was the biggest fight. Kind of just setting things up for future battles and future title fights. This card was like the main cornerstone for the lightweight division, right? So it felt great. It feels good to be an honorary Hawaiian, Now I can get that title, hopefully.
You
I
earned
got
it.
some respect with my Hawaiian brothers.
Definitely earned it. Yeah, this card was a total tidal wave. The light heavyweight division. If you're Sean Shelby, the light heavyweight division is totally in shambles. Everything that you've planned for 2021, everything that you've foreseen, like, oh, okay, well, Conor McGregor's going to go here, and we'll put Dustin Poirier here. Let's not forget about Gaethje, maybe throwing a little Oliveira. Now, with everything that's happened, that really does shuffle the lightweight division up, not just in a prospect division, but in the literal ranking system. I did a little bit of research, and this is the changes that happened in the lightweight division. Dustin Poirier replaced Justin Gaethje as the number one contender. That's pretty obvious. With the title technically still could be vacant. That still hasn't been announced yet. Michael Chandler debuted and won for his number 4 spot ranking above Tony Ferguson, who's ranked at 5. Conor McGregor is down to 6. Dan Hooker's down to 8. I don't know where Oliveira fits in all that. I didn't see the full boost of those rankings, but those are some of the major changes. Like that's pretty huge to see 8 fighters moving around like that.
Huge. So yeah. Hooker's down to 8 now.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. And he was 5 before?
He was 5th before that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And now we got Conor McGregor dropping to, I think, 16th on the talk of the pound for pound, which is a big ouch to see McGregor there.
Yeah. It's pound for pound is just one of those things that it's so hard for these guys to stay on top, unless you're like a Khabib or a John Jones. I mean, even look at Max Holloway. I mean, Max Holloway was so dominant in the featherweight division, and some would have been like, he had a real good, you could really say he was like top, 3 pound for pound. Demetrius Johnson, I mean, should have been pound for pound. I don't know if he ever held the title of pound for pound, but it's so tough to be pound for pound greatest fighter. That's why when, you see the guys that are, you go, wow, to put him down 16th, I mean, who's 15th? I'd have to see who's 15th, 14th, 13th.
Right. Yeah, I don't know where the pound.
Not always the best fighter. It's not always the best fighters necessarily that are on pound for pound.
I agree, and the pound for pound almost feels theoretical in a sense, where it's not necessarily something that can be quantified. It's more just something a list for other fighters and fight analysts to just kind of butt heads over. I think it's kind of like the BMF title, or anytime you call somebody the GOAT, there's no way to prove it unless it's John Jones. We're gonna have to just agree to disagree. But for 9 times out of 10 right now, John Jones is the greatest of all time. Will Israel Adesanya take that from him? We'll see. That's coming the coming year, apparently. Hopefully, if the fight gods permit it, that is the fight I think that everybody's talking about this year. Could you think of a more wanted fight to happen
than Israel and
John Jones?
I mean, other than Khabib and GSP, which is just completely not, it's just not reality. I feel like, no, I think that's probably the biggest fight, to really see who's pound for pound, and that's a risky fight for John Jones, no doubt, because I mean now you're talking about legacy when you talk about that fight. But yeah, I agree with you. That's probably the one for pound for pound.
Yeah, for pound for goat for the whole enchilada. Really, that's good. That please 2021 of all the things that you could potentially take from us, please don't take this fight. We want to see it. We really need to see it. But let's talk about the fights that we already saw. We saw some great ones. The main card started with some fireworks right off the bat with Marina Rodriguez versus Amanda Hebus. Uh, I looked away from the screen for 1 second in the second round, and I missed the awesome knockout that happened live. I was going to grab the bag of chips. I was having problems streaming. Did you have problems streaming the pay-per-view event by chance?
No, I didn't. I know a lot of people did, but we were
Yeah.
good. We were good.
For the first two fights, I had to watch from my ESPN app on my cell phone, which I was not happy about. But I'm not a Karen. I'm not just going to go calling ESPN and leaving hateful messages until they give me a refund. I saw the fights I wanted to see. I still watched, me and my buddy watched it from my cell phone. We got to watch it. It wasn't the most comfortable fight to see. But you were right. You were right in this one. As much as I enjoy Amanda Hebus, she didn't have the tools to get to get Marina to fight in her game. Marina really just kind of pushed her pace and bullied her initiative, and really fought for that front foot to make sure that she kept Amanda Hebus kind of backing up, but not in a defensive grappling way, but more so in a way where she got stuck against the cage a lot and really got jostled around. What did you see in there, Don?
Real tough fight for Amanda Hebus. She looked like she was going to be one of the next stars in the division, but she had some really favorable matchups on the climb up to this fight to get on this huge pay-per-view. She fought Paige Van Zant, she fought Mackenzie Dern, and she's fought what looks like more grapplers. And a lot of times, the person, it's not always the best grappler that's going to win an MMA fight, right? It's the person who's the best mixed martial artist. And those other fights, she had a big advantage with the striking game. But when she went in with Marina, Marina just completely nullified all of Amanda Hebus's jiu-jitsu. I mean, it's no, without saying that the big thing in this fight was the stoppage. Amanda Hebus got knocked out twice in one fight,
Yeah.
or, you know, maybe not knocked out cold, but she got stopped in 2 times in one fight. A very weird stoppage. That Amanda Ribas fight was just a very interesting stoppage, and it was a big mistake too on the ref's part to let Amanda Hebus take double the damage, double the damage that she took, right? But in any case, that this was all about Marina Rodriguez, man. I mean, what an amazing fighter Marina is. And I saw that she did have enough grappling to at least defend a lot of those grappling exchanges. And I knew that she was a much better striker, obviously, if you look at her stats in her previous fights. So it was just Amanda Ribas's job to get the fight to the ground and submit her. She couldn't do it. And she got stopped twice.
Well, the reason that Marina lost her last fight to Carla Esparza was due to the fact that she really didn't have a tapering or an answer to the takedowns of Carla Esparza. Granted, she's one of the best wrestlers in the women's division for that, but she did a really good job of going back to the drawing board and figuring out what the best way to protect herself and keep the fight standing was. Like you said, really good sprawl and brawl tactics, really good job staying away from Hebus's potential takedowns and moves. Marina is a female fighter that I've been watching for a while with just like, man, she hits with such authority. She's got so much whip at the end of her shots. I'm really excited to see her go deeper into the division because I think she really has a lot of potential as far as highlight reel knockouts and stuff like that. I really think that she has a chance in the division if she keeps progressing.
100%. 100%. It's going
Yeah.
to be big shout out to Big Blake Troops on the podcast watching, an MMA fighter, good training buddy. What's up, Blake? That guy's an animal.
What up, Blake? Thanks for
We
tuning
got
in.
Big, huh?
I said, what up, Blake? Thanks for tuning in.
Yeah. And we got Andy Southern in the house, says,
Hey,
yo.
Andy.
We got Stephen Page. Hello, guys. I'm back. Stephen, man, we need to get Stephen Page a shirt or something, man. This guy's, he's the man.
He's all over our boards. And I'm pretty sure my buddy Chad Kaya is watching. He's the buddy I was watching the fights with. Let's see. Fight after that, the Andrew Sanchez versus Mahmoud Muradov. I missed that because I was trying to figure out how to get my fight streaming. Please explain it to me, Don. Like I'm a baby. Like I'm a child. Like I'm a child baby.
Oh, who? Andy Eldurte Sanchez?
Yes.
Well, you know, the guy comes out with one of the best mullets of the year. Congrats to him on that. He had one, just an impressive mullet. And so the fight started out with everybody talking about that. And then we got into saying, hey, how's this fight going to go? Andrew Eldurte Sanchez is a wrestler. So it was basically Andrew Eldurte Sanchez boxing his opponent when he was a wrestler. So it was one of those frustrating fights, man, where you're just like, take him down, take him down. It didn't look like there were some good exchanges. Eldurte has definitely upped his striking game, with some dirty boxing techniques. But unfortunately, his opponent was just beating him to the punch. His opponent was much quicker than him, and Eldurte was not able to use his main weapon, which is his ground game. So it was just one of those frustrating fights where he ended up getting TKO'd. Nothing really struck out to me in this fight that was like, wow, from these guys. I was actually kind of like, I don't know, wondering why another fight didn't get put on this card. It as high up on the card as it is, but yeah, man.
Felt like rice in a burrito, huh?
There you go.
Yeah, it was filler. It was something to make sure that you got full off the fights. That's fair. Jessica I, Joanne Calderwood. Great fight. Great fight. Really got to see Joanne Calderwood with all of her talents on display. Jessica I really showed that she's persistent, really showed that she's got heart. She stayed in the fight at all times. Never did she give up or anything. But Joanne Calderwood really just showed what she's been really working on since her last loss. Really showed a great mixing of skills as well. Really mixed in the legs, the body kicks, threw a kick at the end of almost every combination. Body, leg, body, head, body, all over the place. Really fun fight to watch in the women's division. They really carried the pace deep into the third round. Joanne Calderwood had 240 attempted strikes with 148 success rate. That's a little over 50%. That's really good. Meanwhile, Jessica threw 173 for 77, just a little bit under that. So not a pretty high striking fight for a women's fight too. Did you enjoy what you saw with that one, Don?
Yeah, it was a great women's fight. I mean, I'd expect nothing less from, with that matchup, great matchup, not two ladies that are world beaters by any means, but two ladies that get out there and fight their asses off every single fight. And Calderwood was very impressive. That's a huge win for her. Jessica I is a veteran in the game. Like you said, the kicks were very impressive on her part, movement. And just the fact that she was able to avoid a lot of the ground threats that Jessica I has, because again, Jessica I is a grappler that now strikes a lot. And so, hey man, did I call this fight? I think I may have called that fight.
You called it.
Just based on grittiness, based on, Calderwood's, my feeling that Calderwood is evolving more in each of her fights. Great fight, man. Great fight. And I'm interested to see who Calderwood's going to go up, go against next. You know, she has troubles with grapplers, really good grapplers, really good submission artists, and specifically ladies that can take her down. So I feel like that's where she needs to make improvements in her game. It's not the stand up anymore. Stand up looks very, very sharp. She can stand up with some of the best of them, but we need to see her work on her ground game.
Well, it's not to say that Jessica I didn't attempt the takedown. She went to it a couple times, just never really was able to pick it up. She got one takedown at a certain point, but it really wasn't effective. It wasn't able to hold position for very long. She tried, but I think JoJo implemented some good angle changes. She really did a good job keeping the fight in front of her. One thing she does with fighters who are able to take down well, she lets them get the angle on her. She allows them to get it on the side of her hip, or even a couple times she got dragged down from the back. She doesn't seem to do well when the fight leaves her opening 45 degrees. Once it starts getting squirrely on the outside, it seems that she really kind of loses control of it. So she did a really good job of keeping somebody like Jessica I in front of her, who's not known for really her angling techniques. She is kind of a straightforward fighter. So I'd say upon retrospect, it actually was a good matchup for JoJo on paper. But maybe that's something they've been working as well, is just making sure that the fight stays in front of her.
100%, dude. And I think, JoJo's kind of future, after MMA is going to be in bare knuckle boxing, because like you said, she likes to keep it close range. She's really good on the inside. She has really, really good boxing. So I could see her go to bare knuckle boxing in the future. As far as MMA goes, as it is she's a 50-50 fighter, as Jessica I is.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's the type of thing where if she goes against a grappler, even a decent wrestler, I'll call the wrestler on that every time.
Yeah, I would agree. As far as Jessica I, there's not much room for her development in the UFC right now. The weight class is kind of running away from her. Unless she wants to settle into a role of gatekeeper, she might want to explore other divisions, maybe even different contract, depends. UFC's been dropping fighters left and right. So it's a potential that after a few losses have accrued, she might have to move on anyways. She even lost in submission underground grappling. She can't.
I know that. Yeah.
It's been a tough run for Jessica lately. Wish the best for her though. She fought with a lot of heart. It was a great fight, but JoJo definitely took that one. All right, Don, let's talk about it. We've waited months for this discussion here. Since, what was it? November was when we finally found out that Michael Chandler joined the UFC, I believe, or September, late September, somewhere around there.
Late September. And previous to that, when we found out that he was a free agent, we started talking about the possibility of him in the UFC, and I was just so excited that, to see him get in the UFC. So it took a while for him to get a fight signed, man. It took a while for him to get a fight signed. It took a while for him to get to the UFC, man. I mean, you're talking about a guy who, in my opinion, should have been in the UFC years ago, and the question was, did he pass his prime in Bellator? Did he already hit his prime? So yeah, man, this was the fight.
So let's not speed this up too much. I want to ride the build on this, because you deserve it. You've been sent. So late September, we found out about this potential that Michael Chandler was going to be joining the UFC, and from just this potential alone, your opinion on him has been unswaying and unwavering in the face of many speculation, in the face of many hypotheticals and potentials. We wax and wane about how he would do against Tony Ferguson and how he would do against Justin Gaethje or Justin Gaethje or Dustin Poirier or Khabib even. And I gotta say, I have decided to eat a slice of pie that's baked from my own words. I'm eating my words on this one, Don. I doubted you at every turn. I always played devil's advocate to say that my opinion has completely changed. Absolutely 100%. Michael Chandler went in there and pretty much destroyed Dan Hooker. Do you want to talk? Do you want to talk the breakdown, or do you want to hear it in my words so you can enjoy your victory?
Well, not only did your opinion change overall on him, you are now on his hype train. You are now a Michael Chandler believer,
Toot toot.
and it was a long time coming.
Yeah.
But please break it down. I'm interested to hear like kind of what you saw in that fight and everything.
Well, Michael Chandler is a bulldog. He immediately went on the offensive with the footwork, took a very wide, low stance, and started angling him against the cage immediately, taking away Dan Hooker's height. When somebody has the height advantage and allows the person of lower height to dictate the distance, that's not a good sign, because what he was doing was taking away the space for the tall guy to operate. When you're the taller guy, you need that back space to operate so that you can angle out of all of your combinations. Because anytime you throw distance combinations, you know they're coming inside or they're leaving. So if they're leaving, you follow. If they're coming inside, you circle out. You circle back left or back right. You find the angle and you continue pushing forward once you circle out, because now your angle changes. If they're still moving forward, you now have about a 25% angle to work with that you can really gain some advantage. Dan Hooker didn't do any of these things to set up. He looked like, because Michael Chandler was moving so fast, I think he didn't really have time to process. Dan Hooker's kind of notorious for being a bit of a slow starter. Michael Chandler absolutely took advantage of that footwork wise. He did the Mike Tyson thing of just taking the ring away from you. He was dictating exactly where the footwork was going. And then he started laying into him with body shots. These body shots were loud, and we had a crowd there, so it's not like it's not like the ring mics how it was for the past few months where you just hear the thud of the gloves. Above the crowd, you could hear the sound of the contact. He was wrecking body. You could see the air being taken. You could see Dan Hooker starting to try to change angles, trying to move more swiftly, and let's not forget about that push kick he threw too, that teep kick that Michael Chandler threw out of nowhere. That's a tall guy move, and he did it on Dan Hooker, all because of great footwork. Then he used the low-high combination. He went for a body cross, high front hook, and nailed Hooker right on the chin just from good angling. And then from there, he was able to capitalize on some ground and pound, and it was all she wrote.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty much the entire fight from my view. Dan Hooker didn't really have any answers from the get-go. Michael Chandler controlled the fight 100% from start to finish.
Awesome, dude. Yeah, great breakdown, brother. Amazing breakdown. And that's why this show's so cool, because we have the stand up in the ground, and yeah, man. I mean, as far as what I saw, it was a very aggressive Michael Chandler. And that's how Michael Chandler fights. That's how Michael Chandler fights. It's interesting when you talk about kind of getting low, like Mike Tyson, dipping and moving. And, a lot of people were saying, oh, you can't compare Tyson to Chandler. Well, it's not a comparison as far as boxing skills. It's a guy who emulated one of the greats of boxing and can pull it off with his height and with his body type. He picked the perfect striking style, and he used it against Dan Hooker. Like you said, power to the body, heavy power to the body. And, a couple things were interesting in this fight. I mean, for one, Chandler did not try to take Hooker down. I don't really recall him even threatening the takedown. I'd have to watch it again. He may have touched the legs at some point, but it wasn't enough to say, that he was really trying to get Hooker to think about the ground game. He was full on boxing with a few kicks sprinkled in, Dan Hooker, everything with power. And like you said, Hooker was not doing the things that he needed to do in the striking game. Dana White even said Hooker looked like he froze a little bit. And that's interesting. That's actually the first thing that I noticed in the fight. It wasn't like, wow, Michael Chandler's on fire. It was like, what's Hooker doing?
Yeah.
Why
That's
isn't Hooker kneeing? Why isn't Hooker keeping away?
that's what that's what fast footwork does to you. What Michael Chandler did is he overloaded Dan Hooker's senses. He came at him very quickly. He came at him low. The body shots were his fake to the takedown. If you notice that every time Hooker started taking body shots, he didn't start covering up. He started opening his hands because he thought that those arms reaching out were actually going to be trying to secure a hip or a leg. So what he was doing was preparing to get a crossface, an underhook, some type of sprawling mechanism, because he knows that if you're going to sprawl against somebody like Michael Chandler, you got to sprawl early. So I think what Chandler was doing was really pressing the body shots because of the fact that to your mind's fast response, that looks like it could be a takedown if you're looking for the takedown. So Michael Chandler did a really good job mind screwing him at that, where he took a really low angle, making it look like that takedown was coming. And the footwork said takedown. With the speed of Chandler's footwork, it looked like he was angling to either press cage or to take him down. And he did a really good job. Normally, you want to circle the jab hand, but if you want to get an angle for a takedown, you have to circle the power hand. That's kind of the trade-off when it comes to takedown strategy. But he fearlessly circled the power hand. And that, I think that made Dan Hooker really take the bait as far as takedown.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And did Michael Chandler switch his stance at all in that fight? It seemed like at some point, one of the points I recall, one of them being southpaw.
The one I only saw post teep kick, he switched stance for a little bit, but for the most part, he kept it orthodox from what I remember. So not orthodox, southpaw, right? Yeah, because it was the right hand that hit the body, and the left came up. I remember that. Is he a southpaw fighter?
I think he is orthodox. So whenever he did that teep kick,
yeah, because it was a cross to the body and it was a front foot hook. Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. And Hooker's knees too, man. I mean, we're all talking about Hooker's knees, Hooker would be coming up with some knees. And I feel like there's definitely opportunities where Michael Chandler was close enough to do it. But like you had said, just the distance close, the speed that he was fighting with, the pressure he was putting on him, and the fact that he was so worried about the takedowns just really took Hooker out of his game.
Yeah, I agree. I think the only way to really beat Chandler is to not let him lead the dance. And that's a really hard thing to do because he's a very aggressive starter. You can see from all his clips that once that bell sounds for round one, it's a fight. Chandler's on it. So he's going to be a tough dude in the division to beat. A lot of the people in the division are kind of slow starters. Poirier is notorious for being one, but he was able to really weather. We'll talk about that in a second. Justin Gaethje is actually a pretty strong starter, but then you got people like Oliveira who likes to feel a fighter out. Ferguson who makes his fights more bit of drag through the mud. It makes it a real dirty fight. So really interesting move in the lightweight division. I think we got a lot to watch as far as the scramble for Khabib's legacy, the scramble for scraps. That's what I'm calling it. The 2021 lightweight scramble for scraps. That's what they're all looking for.
That's what they're looking for. But, at the same time, only a few guys are confident enough to take that fight. And most of them are guys who have not fought Khabib already. You don't see Dustin Poirier really screaming for a Khabib rematch. He's talking about Conor, right? You don't see Justin coming out and saying, I want a rematch. So really it's just Chandler at this point who really wants it. The other guys are just kind of talking about other fights. But an absolutely amazing UFC debut by Michael Chandler. His post-fight interview was pretty funny. It wasn't cringeworthy, but it was kind of a little Ric Flair, a little bit of Madman jumping off the side of the cage. And you just talk about some, I feel like he was just, like he was saying, he was visualizing, he was just thinking about that fight, and everything went exactly the way he wanted it to go. And kudos to him. Um, and kudos to him for calling out the baddest man in the 155-pound division, one of the best lightweights ever. One
Pretty
of the
much
best.
called out everybody.
Yep.
He called out Poirier and he called out Khabib in
Yep.
one sentence. He doesn't care, man. That's an exciting fighter to see. Somebody coming in real hungry, real hot in the division, trying to take everybody's breakfast. Real interesting.
Yeah.
Very, very interesting. And
Super interesting. You know, as far as him and Khabib goes, I still believe that he has what it takes to beat Khabib, and I believe that he's going to be one of the guys that aren't going to be mentally broke by Khabib in some of the exchanges. But after seeing him fight Dan Hooker, 100% stand up, beating Benson Henderson, which was a stand up fight.
mm-hmm.
It may be a situation where he's not training enough wrestling to beat Khabib. And so that's something where I would look at if Khabib and him would fight, in 3 weeks, I would say that that's a tough fight for Chandler because, he has to just train wrestling throughout the camp for Khabib. Keep working his striking, but really work on his wrestling. And I think he's made so many improvements in his striking, Michael Chandler has, that he would need a long training camp for Khabib, like a 3 to, he needs time to rest, and then he needs some time, a lot of time to prepare for Khabib to win that fight. But I think he's the guy to do it. And who else is left, really?
It's honestly, with one more win, I think that thrusts Chandler into the conversation of, what else would it take? I mean, who does he fight from here? Does he go up in the rankings and take on either Poirier, Gaethje, how am I forgetting this? Oliveira, or do they make him fight somebody a little bit lower than him again, or this time? Like maybe somebody who's on the rise. I don't know. I gotta look at the lightweight division to get a good idea. But there's so much movement going on. It's hard to see which fighters are going to fight upward and which ones are going to have to fight downward, because that belt is still in limbo, and Dana White really still hasn't said too much about it. We heard Khabib say more about it than Dana White. Khabib talking about how he's a free agent now and this and that, how he doesn't see himself in the rankings, and that, take the belt, whatever. It's really, really fascinating to see what's going to happen from here. I don't have any more predictions for this already, just because I need to see more.
Yeah, dude. Yeah. Khabib, I think, doesn't want to fight Michael Chandler for the obvious reason of he's very dangerous. The other reason he doesn't want to fight Michael Chandler is because Chandler hasn't dominated the lightweight division. Is it an excuse that these guys are using to say, well, yeah, Chandler just completely obliterated Dan Hooker, a top 5 UFC lightweight, but he hasn't fought the other guys in the UFC because, and built his way up. He hasn't fought, 10 fights in the UFC to get his shot. But at the end of the day, man, he's fought a lot of UFC champions already. It's just different organizations. They've fought all the same guys, not all the same. I think that, UFC has better talent, but Chandler's beat the same level caliber. He has an equal record, and besides Khabib, he has a very similar record like Poirier and Gaethje. These guys are all at about 20-ish wins and 3 or 4 losses. The only one who's immaculate is Khabib, but Khabib just needs a new challenge. The tough thing about Chandler fighting Poirier is Poirier's made that good $1 million plus check, and now he's off. I feel like he's not. I mean, he's still amazing. He's the best he's ever looked. but now he's the one thinking he's going to call the shots like Nate Diaz and Conor McGregor.
Well, he did this last time when he won the interim belt. He started parading around like he's the champ. Right now, he's calling himself the uncrowned champ, which respectfully so he is. But he tends to get a little complacent when he believes he's the champion. Look what happened in his preparation for Khabib. He truly believed he's a champ. He cried when he got that interim belt, but it wasn't the real thing. That's a big loss of hunger when you hold that belt and believe it's yours. You know, although Justin Gaethje didn't do as well as Dustin Poirier, he certainly looked more hungry going into that fight, just because of the fact that he didn't see his interim belt as a true champion's belt. He wasn't happy with it until he got the real one, which unfortunately he didn't. But you know, who knows where the lightweight division will go from here on out. Justin might get his chance to wear that actual strap. But as far as it goes, I'm worried that Poirier might lose his competitive edge again in becoming a champion. I hope it's something that if he does get the championship belt, or if he has the champion mentality, I hope that he does continue to stay hungry, because he's a really dominant fighter and he's a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah. And he's made it clear that, you know, his next fight, you know, has to be for the belt and everything. But just the fact that he's kind of dismisses Chandler and kind of uses a little bit of an excuse, saying he hasn't earned the right to fight him next, leads me to believe that, like you said, he's now in some championship, you know, mindset. And, you know, that being said, man, I mean, he's had so many amazing wins, and I could see easily how he would get to that level, you know, and it's, you know, that plus all the money really makes these guys kind of pick and choose the fight if they don't have to fight, right? But you have Gaethje, you have Poirier, you have Michael Chandler, you have McGregor, sort of. Khabib's like just kind of out there, kind of just, you know, looking at these guys and figuring out what fight he wants to take. So it's an interesting division, you know. And back to Michael Chandler, it sucks for him because now he's like he's right there, and these guys are all, you know, messing around with what fights they want to take and things like that. Charles Oliveira versus Chandler, that would be an amazing fight if Charles wants it.
It'd be an amazing fight, but I don't think it would be as anticipated as some of these other matchups could be. You know, for some reason, Oliveira Chandler doesn't excite me the way that, say, Oliveira Ferguson or Poirier Chandler. Both of those they feel good. They send a shiver down your spine thinking about those fights. I think about Michael Chandler and Charles Oliveira. I think it's going to be a 5-round dogfight. That's a fight that probably takes place on the ground and is probably real ground and pound heavy. A lot of submission attempts, a lot of transitions, a dirty fight. I think for the average viewer, I don't think it's as exciting of a fight, and I think that's who they're trying to appeal to right now, with the ABC acquisitions, with their fights being on a more national platform. I think they're looking for those fights that have more of that kapow factor. And as much as us MMA fans enjoy Oliveira Chandler, because we know that would be a great fight, we know that would be a very competitive fight. We also know it would be a fight that's 75 to 80% probable of taking place on the ground, which is what I think the UFC kind of tries to not necessarily avoid, but it seems like for the main events, they kind of try to push the striker grappler or the striker, just because it kind of, I mean, you saw what Holloway Cater did for their first ABC launch. Brilliant fight to choose.
Yeah, that's a great point. You know, it makes it most of the times will make for an exciting, you know, fight on the feet or a knockout, you know, devastating fight, devastating finish. But Oliveira Chandler's tough because for one, Oliveira has such a resume. I don't know if he wants to fight Chandler for the same reason that Poirier doesn't want to fight Chandler. Just the fact that he hasn't really built up in the UFC. They feel like he didn't earn it, X, Y, and Z. I think Chandler wins that fight, even though Oliveira is probably the best MMA grappler in MMA, right? Currently, a guy who can really mix up the stand up in the ground and who can finish fights in any position on the ground. I've seen Chandler fight really, really good MMA grapplers, and he almost always wins those fights. So I could see Chandler maybe not destroying Oliveira, like you said, probably go the distance, but I think he wins that fight. And I think Chandler goes on to win the belt, but I don't believe he's going to be able to hold on to it for very long, unless he changes something, because, historically he's won the belt several times and then he loses the second one. And he even says that too, that he loses confidence or he kind of just loses the hunger, the focus. Yeah, a little bit. But we'll see if Charlie takes it. I don't know who's Charles Oliveira's next fight's going to be. He's right there. It's just, maybe Gaethje. I don't know if they fought. I don't think they fought yet.
Yeah, Oliveira's kind of the odd one. They don't really know what to do with him because he kind of just forced his way into this rankings and was like, it's my time. Like, now, Charles Oliveira, we've had you forever on the roster. Why now? He's like, I want it now. So he's making demands. He's climbing the roster and he deserves it. I mean, his performance against Ferguson was nothing short of spectacular. And it was so good, it made me wonder if we had seen a complete bizarro version of Tony Ferguson where he just wasn't there. But I go back and watch the fight. I was like, no, Ferguson was there. Oliveira was just hot, cooking hot, really using some tools and some deploying some techniques that were really above the level that we've seen from Oliveira before. So I don't know if he's changed something or he's just maturing his talent, but he's really somebody to look at, because I don't think that win came from a disparaged Ferguson. I think that came from a focused Oliveira. I think we could see a lot more from him in the top of the division if we just give him the chance. Just give him the chance. Let's go ahead and talk about this headlining fight that we saw, huh? The big fight, the one that we all spent the money on. Conor McGregor and Dustin Poirier didn't go the way a lot of people thought. Didn't go the way the UFC thought it was going to go. Don, do you want to go ahead and give the breakdown on this?
Yeah, so an interesting fight, a very good fight. Yeah, Conor McGregor pre-fight really kind of gave me more confidence in Dustin Poirier's chances. There was a lot of respect in the pre-fight. He seemed like he's got very zen in his approach to the game and really showing that he's matured as a person, and that was kind of like, did Conor lose the hunger was kind of what I was wondering, are we going to see the same Conor McGregor now that he's not fired up, because a lot of guys get fired up like that because that's what they need to get the extra level of belief that it takes to go fight the best in the world, and Conor McGregor, in a way, Conor McGregor's technique a lot of times was getting in people's heads. He uses that as a weapon in itself. So, the fact that he didn't have that working in his favor, I think definitely worked against him. I think he should have talked more smack to Dustin Poirier. I think he should have, ordered 20 pizzas to his hotel room. I mean, do something, man. But it's, as far as the fight goes, Conor had his moments. Conor was sharp. Conor was landing his shots. Looked to be winning the boxing exchange in round one, and was kind of wearing on Dustin Poirier in certain times. But he was not blocking those low calf kicks, as we all know. and that was his downfall. You know, I saw it the way a lot of people did. It was just the low kick. It wasn't necessarily a TKO with head strikes. It was a TKO leg kick victory. The way that I see that actually happening, and yeah, Poirier looked amazing. He turned it up. He was aggressive, no fear this time. You know, Poirier did everything he said he was going to do in the fight, and Connor just got caught with the low kicks. You know, as far as Connor's game plan went, um, besides the leg kicks, it looked like it was going his way. Besides the leg kicks, you know, I don't think Connor made any mistakes other than the leg kick in the fight. And I think Connor actually looked really, really good, man. For a guy who hasn't fought in a while, he looked really, really good. But he's now the percentages go. Connor's boxing percentage is so much higher than his other skills. It's kind of being, you know, his overall MMA is definitely changing in the boxing realm of things. So huge win for Dustin. What'd you think about that, bro?
So, in order to begin this breakdown, we need to go back. We need to go back to last week when Max Holloway said that he was the best boxer in the UFC. And Conor McGregor took offense to that. He hopped on Twitter immediately before the fight was even over and said, Max Holloway thinks he's the best boxer in the UFC. I doubt that. I don't believe that. We should mix it up after I do this fight with Dustin because I want to prove to him that I'm the best boxer in the UFC. All right, so that was set. When Conor came out to fight, he came out very aggressive. He took over, he did some ring generalship. He immediately took over the ring. Very good move on his part. But I noticed something. He wasn't standing at his wide karate stance, his saddling to ride a horse style of holding his legs. He was very heavy on his front foot. Very heavy. So heavy, in fact, I would say he was standing overly boxing. He was trying to stand in a very heavy boxing stance. Didn't implement a lot of his low kicks or any of his kicks that he normally does. He did throw one spinning hook kick just to kind of show off, but he wasn't fighting like a kickboxer the way he does when he wins. He was fighting like a boxer. Dustin Poirier saw this very early. He started hitting that nerve behind his calf, saw he had some success, and saw that Conor never really abandoned that boxer stance. I think Conor McGregor had a lot of layers going on in his head. And I think that was probably the reason why he didn't shit talk this time around, is because of the fact that I think he had a lot going on in his brain as far as Dustin Poirier looking better since their last fight and watching him progress. He mentioned himself that there was ring rust. I'm assuming that was also something that he was self-conscious about. Is, you know, has it been too long for me to just step inside the ring and fight again? Dustin Poirier is an animal. You know, have I lost it? Have I not been training hard enough? All the things that you ask yourself when you've stepped away for too long and are trying to step back in the ring. Mixed with the strategy that where he was trying to prove something, which Conor McGregor has nothing to prove to anybody. I mean, he's already done some of the first things that have ever been done and some of the greatest moments in MMA. He's responsible for making MMA a superstar sport. Now you can have superstars in MMA all because of Conor McGregor. But I feel like he's still trying to look for things to prove. And when you look for fighting inspiration like that, you tread dangerous waters, kind of like how he did with Poirier, where he left that front leg really heavy out there for Poirier to really pick apart. I mean, he didn't even try to check his kicks. They weren't even in his strategy. There's a couple that he buffed, but he didn't angle his shin towards. He didn't make Dustin Poirier pay at all. He wanted to make it a boxing match. And I think that really bit him in the ass. That's what it looked like to me.
Mm-hmm. Did he check any of the kicks, the low calves at all?
He, like I said, he buffed a couple of them where he just angled his knee. So, you know, he planted his foot and absorbed contact, but kind of like the Dutch style, but he didn't really angle the shin in at all. He didn't go for that shin to shin contact, which I thought was pretty interesting because he would have had the advantage from the positioning to just really shut down Dustin's leg kicks. All he had to do is check one or two of them. Dustin would be like, all right, what else am I going to do? Because that doesn't feel good when you're the kicker.
Yeah.
He never really made the full attempt to. He kind of half-assed the leg blocking.
Mhm. Yeah, and he was talking about how he acknowledged that he wasn't doing it right, and the kick was still getting through to part of the muscle.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but like you said, Connor really stepped out of his striking zone, what he normally does. When I look at Conor McGregor, it's kind of almost an old school kickboxing style where you have a karate stance, karate kicks, and karate blitzing and countering. If you look like a Stephen Wonderboy Thompson type deal. And then on top of that, he has amazing boxing, right? So it's very interesting, like you said, that he went almost all boxer on that front leg and wasn't going any kicks, to speak of, So yeah, that was pretty interesting too, is because Connor is not really a Muay Thai striker and Dustin is, so they have different skills and both use them well, right? But Poirier looked like he also had kind of a second wind in the fight too. After that first round, he started seeing that his leg kicks were working, and it gave him a second wind to really go after the kill. But I don't know. Do you think Conor McGregor is going to come back, because he's talking like nothing really, is in his mind for that?
He wants to come back. He definitely wants to. Um, Losing this fight, I think, throws him out of the contention for his celebrity boxing matches that he was hoping for. Losing to Poirier means no more Pacquiao. That's out the window. No more Floyd Connor too, if he was trying to plan that. There was word of him trying to box some pro boxers, but now with another loss, that throws him out of the top 5, which really kind of puts him in an awkward place where he's going to, if he wants to get back to the status of champagne wishes and caviar dreams, what he's used to, the lifestyle that he's become accustomed to, he's going to have to earn it again. And I think the second climb is always harder than the first. Does he necessarily need it? He just spent $1 million on a watch before the fight while he was out in Dubai. So does he necessarily need the money? I don't know. It has to be about more than just money to him at this point. So we're at a very interesting point, especially with somebody like Conor McGregor, who talks so much shit. Is he Justin Bieber, or is he truly the greatest of all time? Because you can say what you want to on your way to the top, and I mean, he did a great job opening a lot of doors for MMA, but at the same time, MMA doesn't stop moving. It never has. Conor McGregor, as much as you've moved it forward, you're still only a part of its megaton exploration and expansion. You're just a small part of it. As big of a part as you were at a certain point in time, if you look at martial arts as a whole and how much the UFC and MMA has expanded in general, he's just a blip. He's just a blink of an eye. And he in order to make his legacy permanent, I think he really needs to cement it with a good comeback. I mean, he's still already done things at record levels, but I think in order to make himself feel like he truly is the champion, he would definitely need to come back. Do you think he has it in him?
Yeah, I definitely think he has it in him. I think that he, with a solid training camp, would come back and beat Dustin Poirier in their third fight, if he finds motivation, like you said, and if he can figure out if that's even something he wants to do from a legacy standpoint, from a continuing of his career standpoint. Um, you know, then that's something he's going to have to decide. It's not financial, and so just the fact that he spent $1 million on the same amount, on a watch, the same amount that Dustin Poirier made to fight him, you know, tells you right there what levels of you know money that he has at this point. So he doesn't want to fight for money, but he can definitely beat Dustin Poirier. You know, I'd love to see him against Chandler. I'd love to see him against Holloway. You know, Khabib, not so much. That fight would definitely sell, and that's probably what Dana wants to do. But that fight's not as interesting as the other matchups for Conor. You know, as far as the guys who are out there, there's a lot of guys Conor can fight, put on an amazing fight, and end his career with a victory.
Rob, how do you think Connor Chandler would go?
Man, Conor Chandler, jeez. Well, I think Chandler would for sure destroy Conor.
Just thinking about that fight blows my mind. I don't even want to do the brain math to do my calculations on who I think would win. That just hurts my head. All those figures disturb me. Those opposite talents, because that's what they are. They're complete opposites of each other, Conor McGregor and Michael Chandler. They're like literally the complete polar opposite of each other when it comes to fighting styles. When the only thing they have in common is their footwork, which means that it'll be a real dangerous fight. It actually runs the danger of kind of being like a Adesanya Romero type fight too, where it's just a lot of footwork and a lot of setups and feints and not a lot of actual action, just because of the fact that both of them are playing mental chess and they see how things play out a step before it does. So they step into it and step back and step in and step back, because both of them are like, no, I don't like that. No, don't like that either, because they're setting each other up so well. I don't even want to think about that. Let's forget that. So so you, like I said, you clean sweep me in all of the fight predictions. Good job. Well done. It hurts my heart. Next week, apparently we're supposed to get Alistair Overeem and Alexander Volkov, but they haven't announced it on anything. They have, or on February 6th, so not next Saturday. They haven't announced it anywhere except for UFC.com. They haven't put any other fights on the card. It's just those two on their website, on all their media. I checked all social media, not getting any answers. So apparently we're not having fights until February 6th, which means that there's no fights, there's no podcast, right, Don? I mean, we can't really do a podcast without information on what's going on. Does that mean we're off for a week?
Yeah, man. I mean, if there's no fights to call, you know.
I'll take that time to improve our YouTube channel, as well as get our audio up as a podcast on a major channel, so that we can get our listeners caught up if they want to listen to us in the car or at work or something like that. That's the route to go. We need to do that. So I will be doing that soon. We'll have all 25 episodes on Anchor or some podcasting website by the next time we podcast. I will do my best to get that off the ground. But we do have some fights coming in the future to announce that I've been looking at. First of all, we got, all right, in boxing, April 17th, Ben Askren and Jake Paul are going to fight. What do you think about that?
That's just what do you call it? A freak show fight. Yeah, it's just a circus act, man. I mean, that fight. Hey, I'm gonna watch it. I wouldn't buy that one, but I'm definitely gonna watch to see how that goes. But Ben Askren could clinch this YouTube guy, and he can clinch him a lot and land on the inside. So Ben Askren could definitely beat him in the stand-up. I think a lot of people are sleeping on Ben Askren because of what Jorge Masvidal did to him, and kind of what he was known for in MMA. But this guy's trained for over a decade on the stand-up arts. So I think Ben Askren wins that. So I don't know, man. It kind of interests me a little bit now that I think about it.
Yeah, I don't know. I take Jake Paul in this one just because he's been working with the best boxers in the world. Granted, for only the past couple years, but he does have a wrestling background as well. I mean, not like that's necessary in boxing, but he's no physical slouch. He is a bit of a physical specimen. He's closer to his prime than Ben Askren. I mean, he's coming off the confidence of knockout Schurz with a professional basketball player. He's still riding a high. I don't know. I don't know. It's all the recipes for an upset because on paper, Ben Askren is of course the favorite. More fights under his belt, more ring experience, worked with more, higher talents out there. But the fact that Jake Paul's been focusing on strictly boxing for this long, and they're only boxing what, 5 2-minute rounds, 3-minute rounds, that plays really heavily into his favor. I mean, I feel like it's when you're stepping in into that domain, he's kind of got the benefit. It's
Yeah, it's a type of thing in my mind that it's a guy who just fought a basketball player, and it's another guy who's going toe to toe with UFC fighters that have trained 20 years in their discipline and in striking, and Askren's able to slip the punches, and he's still able to block punches at a very, very high level. He's able to land blows that aren't necessarily knockout blows, but he can jab, he can move his head with some of the best of them in the world. And then you look at Jake Paul, who, I mean, has he ever fought a boxer?
I don't think so. But I can tell you from a clinical standpoint, his technique doesn't look bad. And boxing is one of those sports where it really is about knowing how to box, not necessarily knowing how to fight. So I don't know. I'm not saying that Jake Paul's going to win. I'm saying it's enough to confuse me. It's enough for me to look at and be like, ooh, this fight really isn't intended for Ben Askren. Like, it really doesn't favor him in any way other than the fact that he's, fought professional fighters. The MMA striking style is very different. Yeah, he boxes and he knows how to box, and I'm sure of it. But fighting a technical boxer in a technical boxing match with technical boxing rules kind of changes the game a little bit. I'm just saying, I don't know.
Look, you can train any guy off the street for 6 months or a year, and he's going to knock out a pro basketball player. I want to see somebody who has some fight Jake Paul before I can even make that, but I haven't really seen his fights. It's just more like I've seen some knockout clips, but those are against guys who can't throw a punch. Right. So yeah, we'll see, man. We'll definitely see. Yeah. If he knocks out Jake Paul, then, or if he knocks out Askren, then he can rightfully call for some guys of some higher caliber, because I mean, Dylan Dennis doesn't even want to fight him. And he's just starting out in Bellator. He can make, a lot of money fighting Jake Paul, but
he's been dodging him. He has been dodging him.
Yeah, he's been dodging him a bit, but I even think Dylan Dennis will probably knock out Jake Paul, or I think he'll beat him in a boxing match because he can clinch him. He can clinch him and go inside on him, no problem. And he's out there sparring with Conor McGregor. He's sparring with guys, of that level. But yeah, it's just a big freak show. It's a guy who's a YouTuber fighting, basketball players and then calling out other guys, because he has money, he can go out and get his ass whooped. So, hey,
as long as my neighbor's willing to pay for it, I will be willing to watch it. Also on the list coming up, April 17th, just recently announced, Robert Whitaker and Paulo Costa. That's going to be a fun one. I think both of them are really going to bring it for that one. We also have April 10th. We got Darren Till and Marvin Vettori set to headline. They had verbal agreement only, so we're still waiting for the final trigger pull on that. And then finally, we have Tyron Woodley is going to make his return to the octagon. UFC 260, they're saying, against Vicente Luque. So we got some pretty awesome fights in the pipeline. Those are going to be a lot of fun to talk about. Let's save those on the plate because there's a lot of meat on the bone. Let's not waste that. I'd like to address that coming up soon. Anything you want to talk about? Oh, aren't you doing something fight-wise, jiu-jitsu-wise? I think I saw a post on your social media. What's going down?
Yeah, I'm hoping to fight in jiu-jitsu, do a jiu-jitsu match for Fight to Win coming up here pretty soon. So it's a super cool show. They have like fireworks, and they have all the light show, and it's like a jujitsu. It's like they call it a jujitsu party. So it's like a mat that's raised, and they have some fans and stuff. I'm gonna have to travel for it. So I don't know if that's gonna be when that's gonna be, but man, I'm really excited for that. And then hopefully we'll be training to try to get to do the Abu Dhabi trials, ADCC trials at the end of the year, and that's going to be a really big tournament. So just want to compete as much as I can, brother.
That's the name of the game. It's a tough time right now, but it's tough for everybody. Your calendar looks just like all of theirs. That's what I've been telling myself as a comedian. It hurts to look at your calendar and see such thin gigs, but my calendar looks just as daunting as theirs. Everybody's having trouble times right now, but that's okay. We're all doing our best. Anything else you want to talk about before we go?
It's all from me, my bro.
Awesome. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure you check out our YouTube if you want a backlist of our episodes. You can find the link in our posts of Stoner versus Stoner's Facebook page, facebook.com/Stoner versus Stoner. Not hard to find. Thanks for checking us out. You can find me at Chino Bra for everything. That's CHINOBRAH. Don, where can they find you?
You can find me at dstoner_LWJJ on Instagram. That's the best place to hit me up and give me your fight predictions.
Yeah, we got some fights coming up. We'll keep posting on our page. Looks like we got the next week off. So, enjoy the fights when they come up. But until then, get your ESPN Plus on. Enjoy the Super Bowl. We might be missing the Super Bowl before our next broadcast. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll be back again soon. I would say enjoy the fights, but enjoy life. Aloha.